Assalamualaikum and good day to all. My name is Nurhawanis binti Ghazali. I would like to present my research project which titled as the potential and limitation of Malaysian government and stakeholders to prevent vessel source marine pollution, study port of Tanjung Pelepas. Okay, here is the table of contents of this presentation that consists of 6 items, and I will explain each of it in the next slides. First of all is the introduction. Port of Tanjung Pelepas can be considered as one of the most advanced container terminals. However, due to the huge amounts of vessels that came across of area PTP, the operation of ships that discharge of pollutants caused negative impacts to the port itself. Hereby, to prevent the pollution from turning worse, there are several authorities and responsible parties that administer and control the issues. Marine pollution can be defined as the introduction of substances or energy from humans into the marine environment. To prevent all this pollution from turning worse, there are many authorities and responsible parties in charge to prevent and reduce the impact of marine pollution, especially from vessels. Thus, in Malaysia, the head authority who is responsible for the issues of marine pollution caused by vessels is the Ministry of Transport, Marine Department, and Department of Environment and others, while the other stakeholders such as port authorities, port operators, and shipping liners also need to be responsible for the prevention of marine pollution. The objective of this research are to determine marine pollution issues and problems attributed to shipping activities in Malaysia, especially at PTP, to identify and assess the potential and limitations of Malaysian government, the stakeholders, and PTP for the prevention of marine pollution by vessels. Next is the literature review. Firstly is overlapping of power between government and the authorities involved. The journal published by Kamaruddin in 1998 said that Malaysia has many bodies that are in charge of handling the issue of marine pollution from vessels but still can be managed effectively, such as under the Environmentally Equality Act 1974 and internationally discharge of oil in the territorial sea is considered as an offence, while under Merchant Shipping Ordinance, some discharge of oil is not considered as an offence unless failure to comply with the requirements given will be penalised. Next is the enforcement in complying legislations. According to Post-Pisil in his journal in 2008, there are several legislation used by Universal and Malaysia itself other than MARPOL to prevent marine pollution from vessels. On the other hand, vessels that pass through the Malacca Strait still own duty toward the coastal states to comply with the international maritime safety and pollution standards. Apart from that is lack of competency in managing maritime and marine pollution issue. According to AFROS, Malaysia usually follow and implement other states' management and technologies into our operations first because we are lack in the management and expertise of handling the issue of marine pollution. However, the environmental issues, regulations, and strict operating procedures that have been imposed are actually still cannot eliminate the risk. Okay, let's move to the methodology. This research project used the qualitative method. The researcher obtained the data through primary and secondary data sources. Primary data is data that has not been published, where the thematic analysis is being conducted by interviewing the respondents from the agencies such as Marine Department, DOE, Matrain, and representative from PTP. The interview was held through an online platform and also by obtaining transcription of text by the respondents. Those interviews conducted by using open-ended questions, the quotes being generated from textual material, and besides, the researcher also held this research by obtaining data through secondary data resources where the data collected are from a source that has already been published in any form by other researchers. Next, let's move to the results and discussion. This research is about the potential and limitations posed by the government and stakeholders on to manage the vessel source marine pollution. To prevent marine pollution from the vessel, it is important for all the involved parties such as the government and the stakeholders to play and clear their role by assisting each other to prevent and respond to pollution incidents. In this result, I'm going to discuss 2 types of variables that I obtained for this research, which is firstly is variables for potential of the government and stakeholders. Okay, the variable ratifications of international conventions was segmented into 9 codes and have 30% of potentials of the government and stakeholders poses. The conventions are important because they covered almost all parts of marine pollution prevention, where anything related to this matter, they will automatically refer to the international conventions. And most of the experts were agreed and highlighted the jurisdiction as the variable for the second importance of potential process by the government and stakeholders to comply with. Jurisdiction can be referring as the authority rights or power to elucidate and concern on the law or any matters that fall under the court's exercise. Among the jurisdictions being implemented in Malaysia, especially in PTP, to prevent the vessel source marine pollution is Malaysian Shipping Ordinance 1952. The law on policy reflects the establishment of the potential process by the government and stakeholders to prevent marine pollution from vessels as the third coded segments. A successful law and policy should spell out what employees must and cannot do, as well as information, boundaries, and concepts. For the PTP, they have regulated their environmental compliance, which called PTP Guided Self-Regulation (GSR), that being embarked by the DOE. Government agencies such as Marine Department, DOE, and port authorities like APJ should take all measures and consistently comply with all the related international conventions being ratified. Hence, the maritime enforcement bodies variable were created and being mentioned as the fourth important after the international conventions, because without agencies, who else can monitor and control the marine pollutions in our waters, even if there is tons of new conventions or jurisdictions being created? Even all the conventions, jurisdictions and policies being complied with have been provided and given to the agencies to manage, but the adequacy of enforcement is still not sturdy enough if there is no cooperation with the stakeholders. In this case, cooperation with stakeholders is the key point here, that being the last variable of potential process regarding the vessel source marine pollution, because ports and shipping liners are an integral part of the nation's transportation infrastructure. Next is the variables for limitations faced by the government and stakeholders. The first variable that achieves the highest concern among the experts regarding the limitations faced by the government and stakeholders are issues and challenges that have 8 coded segments, which gain 34.8%. The issues and challenges are actually affect a lot toward the operations and management, because it may restrain the continuity upon their job. For example, PTP facing the issue of an unregistered vendor that does not have the expertise and proper procedure to manage the vessel waste management. The interviewed experts also raised the vessel source marine pollution and ineffective method to reduce pollution as the second highest limitations that gain 26.1%. As we know, the vessel is one of the big contributors that cause marine pollution. From the interview session with PTP, they said that among the common vessel source marine pollution happen within PTP areas are discharge of vessel sewage, discharge of oil, ballast water, vessel garbage, chemical pollutions, and sometimes oil spills from the vessel. The variable of ineffective methods to reduce pollution was raised by the experts due to the inefficiency of some management to implement and adapt the legislations and policies provided. It also considered as the limitation for the government and stakeholders, because they cannot control this kind of matter due to the problems that come from the external sources, such as natural disaster, maintenance issues, the negligence, and sometimes involving the attitude issues of the staff. In order to reduce and prevent the vessel source marine pollution, new way to improve the methods to prevent or reduce the pollution should be advised. For example, waste management guidelines should be provided in terms of standard procedure for the process of disposing of waste in a safe, environmentally appropriate manner. As a result, the variable of initiate provisions of port research facility for all ports was addressed when the experts highlight their opinions about a new initiative to improve the efficiency of port preparation to prevent marine pollution from vessels. Malaysia is still in the process of implementing the port research facilities such as PTP itself, and to get an effective MAPOL implementation, ports were advised to provide an adequate research facility because it can help to collect residues, oily mixes, and waste created by the vessel. The last part to be discussed in this research study is conclusion. The study provides an overview of the potential and limitations of the government and stakeholders' process to prevent marine pollution from vessels. This research agrees that there are also some limitations that need to be faced, even though many guidelines have been provided to monitor. All the potential variables being discussed are related to each other to construct possible power of involved parties in play their role. However, further consideration upon the variables under the limitations faced by the government and stakeholders should also be addressed to support and minimize the restrictions or obstacles under the issues and challenges that are still happen and at the same time come out with new idea in improving the provisions of legislations or policies. Okay, here is my reference. Thank you.